What's up, guys? Sorry for the little break in the videos, but we are back. And as you can tell from the title, we are talking about 2022 rumors. Really, that's all we've got until now. We still have a few more weeks until the 22s actually come out, but there's been a lot of speculation about a lot of things, and that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, so really quickly, before we jump into everything, I want to say that working really closely with a dealership like I do with Timms Harley Davidson, you do have some privilege. You hear some things and you see some things that maybe, you shouldn't. So with that, I'm not going to give any information that I've been given under the guise of keeping that quiet until it's made public. I don't want to get Timms in any trouble. I don't want to get in any trouble myself with Harley Davidson. So unfortunately, some of the info that we do have about some things coming up, we can't talk about. So we're going to talk about the rumor mills that have been going around. We're going to start with the bikes that have been canceled for 2022, the bikes that won't come back. There were 3 bikes on that list that everyone's kind of speculating on. Some people have said this is confirmed. This is not a piece of information that I ran by anyone at the dealership, so I can't say true or false, but I can absolutely see this being true. That was the 1200 Iron, was the first one on the list. Like I said, I made a video a while back. Is the Sportster dead? Clearly not with the new Sportster S. I think the Sportster as we know it is probably dead. Again, just to touch on, it's an emissions thing. It just doesn't make sense for Harley to spend the money on that R&D to get that engine where it needs to be, when clearly that new Revolution Max engine makes tons of power, runs cooler, and is definitely the future of the Sportster, if not the future of Harley Davidson. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I think that's eventually where we're headed. My thoughts on it, I like the 1200 Iron, but that is going to leave us with the 883 Iron and the Sportster 48 based on the models we had this year. So I'm pretty happy with that. It gives you 2 options if you want to go with a conventional Sportster. I do also foresee with that a smaller, say like the 975 Revolution Max engine on a Sportster that I think will be styled a little more traditionally. At least that's what I hope Harley does. I don't have any indications as to whether or not that's going to be a thing. That's just kind of something I'm hoping to see. So moving on, the Softail Slim. Now I'm torn on this because I would never buy a Slim. If I was going to buy a Softail, kind of that style, I would just go for the Heritage, just more bang for your buck. However, I do love the Slim. I love the look of the Slim. I've seen some really nice Softail Slims that were built. Also, the lowest seat height on most of the Harleys, so really good for vertically challenged riders, as well as women too, because even though it's kind of heavy for a motorcycle, because you sit so low, you had more leverage in your legs, so I like that one. But, I can see, they just don't sell a lot because there's too many options in the Softail line that for the same money kind of make the Slim not look so good. The last one on the list was the Sport Glide, and if you watch my original review of the Sport Glide, it's no surprise to you my feelings on that. I just was never a fan of the Sport Glide. I didn't like the fairing. I've warmed up to the clamshell bags, but a lot of other things about the Sport Glide I just didn't love. The one that Timms Harley Davidson built, where we did the FXRT fairing, we did the T-bars, changed the floorboards, did a lot of work to that bike, and I got to ride it several times before it sold. I was in love with that thing, not just the looks, but the way that it rode. And although I loved it, that was also, $3,000 or $4,000 worth of work going into a bike, which I know over time most Harley riders end up spending that much anyway. But to get it how I'd want it out the gate, I'd have to spend that money. So I'm not super sad to see the Sport Glide leave, honestly. Second piece of information we want to go over in the rumor mill is that the 107 will be going away. Now, I do feel like it's about time, because Harley's always their lowest motor, kind of goes away, and then the second highest becomes the new lowest. CVO gets a new engine, etc. So I can see that, especially when the Softail Slim and the Sport Glide, which both use the 107 platform, are going away. It kind of makes sense to go ahead and start phasing that engine out, which means the 114 would be your new small engine or standard engine. And I'm thinking you would see a 117. Harley never really makes like huge jumps, when they're doing these things. So you're looking at the 117 most likely for a bigger engine. And then I'm thinking for CVOs, it's probably going to be a 122. Again, to refer back to one of my old videos, a lot of shameless promotion. I absolutely love the 122 that we did on a Lowrider S. I felt like it was the perfect amount of power. It's not fighting against you in the mountains, Don't get me wrong. I love making the most power possible. I love the big 131 kits and above. I love big custom builds that make 150, 200 horsepower. However, I feel like that's literally just a flex, or if you just want to go as fast as possible in a straight line, it's great. However, riding in the mountains and stuff, it's a ton of power that you don't use. You don't need it. You can't use it. So it's kind of just overkill, and it becomes a numbers game to me at that point. So that's my prediction for that. Now, the big one that I've been seeing was the Lowrider S photo, the infamous photo that's been going around. So what you're looking at here is a Lowrider S with clamshell bags and FXRT style fairing, a little more retro looking to me compared to the conventional bubble shield. Now, from what I've heard, this is a leaked photo of what this bike is going to be. Now, I've heard speculation that it was a production bike, and then I think one or two people had mentioned maybe an Icon Series bike, and this is originally what I thought was going to happen. So they did the revival, and I assumed they were going to do some kind of Softail, just because those fairings on these Softails are so popular now. I assumed they would do one. I've kind of changed my stance on that now, based on some other info we'll get into in just a second, but I see this being a production bike. Will it come with those clamshell bags? It makes sense because Harley's already done the R&D. They're already set up to design these bags from the Sport Glide. I can definitely see that. That fairing, I'll be completely honest, will have to grow on me. I don't love the shape. I like the more conventional. One of my big questions, though, is where will this fall as far as money goes? Because a Lowrider S is already $18,000 if you get it in black. So I'm thinking if they're adding bags and a fairing, they're adding $4,000 to this bike. So I think you're probably looking at a 22, maybe, you know how Harley is, maybe even $23,000. And then the problem with that is you get dangerously close to Street Glide or Road Glide standard range when you're looking at that. And I get not everyone wants a big touring bike, so maybe that's kind of Harley's idea if this is an actual production bike. Maybe it will be an option. One thing I definitely hope is all Lowrider S's don't come outfitted like this. Now, I know those bags will be quick detach, and possibly that fairing, they could make it quick detach just like they did the Sport Glide. However, that would be somewhat of a janky type fairing. A fairing that big that's quick detach, I just feel like is going to be kind of flimsy. So I don't see how they're going to pull that off. Also, I've heard rumors that there may be music on this bike, so speakers inside that fairing. I'm very skeptical of that, but I mean, it's possible. I think they would be smart to leave the door open to put music on that bike, make it pretty easy to sell, a speaker kit and make it a plug and play type system. That would be smart. I really want to know your guys' thoughts on that fairing because, like I said, I'm still torn. Also, let me know what you think about this rumor. Is this a production bike? Is this an icon bike? Is this a bike that some shop just kind of threw together and leaked this photo to create a bunch of stir? Because if so, well done. Mission accomplished. Okay, one more bike on the rumor mill was a new Icon Series bike. And like I said, I thought it was going to be a Softail just because we did a touring bike with the first one with the Harley Davidson Revival. However, I watched Jerry Pallidino's video, and his source is someone who claims to have worked on the assembly line for Harley Davidson as recently as a few months ago, and said that they had a bike that they were referring to as the Elvis bike, which would be a 1957 FLH. It was kind of made popular by Elvis. Elvis was seen riding it. I'll throw some pictures up so you guys can see that. And apparently there was one of these floating around at Harley, according to Jerry's source, that they were, sticking all kind of different parts on and stuff. And at first I was skeptical because it just seemed too close to the Revival. But the more I look at this particular photo of that bike, it's got a lot more going on than the Revival did. Now, whether or not it comes, with all this extra stuff, that's to be seen. Also, the look's going to change pretty drastically because obviously it's going to come with the M8 engine and all the new technology, just like the Revival did. However, this being a non-fairing bike, I can see them doing something like this. I like this bike. I would not be a buyer of this bike, but I wasn't a buyer of the Revival. I'm a fan of it. I like it. I like the idea of them doing this. They sold really, really well. Tim's actually ended up getting two. The first one was sold the day that bike was announced, and then it came in like a week later. And then the customer was nice enough to leave it there and let me do a review on it. And then as soon as we heard we were getting a second one, we had a list of people that wanted one of those bikes. So obviously it was gone immediately. I think if they leave production numbers super low, it would be the same story with this bike. I really don't see them making more than 1,500. Maybe they double it this time. I could see that happening. We'll say they make 3,000 of these. I can see them easily selling 3,000 of these units. Curious to see if they do that or not. But I just thought that was interesting after watching Jerry's video. I've not heard any other rumors about this other than Jerry's video, but Jerry's pretty credible, and according to him, the source is credible, so who knows. He also made mention of a Fat Boy, which I'm not going to talk about in this video. I'd like to refer you to Jerry's video, which I'll put a link in the description, just kind of as a, not that he needs my help, but just as kind of a thank you to him, for putting that information out, giving me something else to talk about. And then lastly is something I wanted to ask you guys about because I have no information, but I've heard twice now that people speculate that there's already a touring frame made to use the Revolution Max engine, which I said as soon as that engine came out, a touring bike with the 150 horsepower like the Pan America would be amazing. I'm with you. I don't love the sound of that engine, but at the end of the day, motorcycle for me is performance. So I think that would be a really good time if you threw that in a Road King, Street Glide, Road Glide, what have you. But apparently they think there's going to be, or that there already is rather, a new frame just based on the fact that we haven't changed frames on the touring bike in 2014. It's about time to do something. And like I said, other people are speculating as well as myself that Revolution Max is kind of the way of the future for Harley Davidson. I don't think you're going to see that M8 phased out anytime soon, but I would say eventually that Revolution Max will take over. So let me know what you guys think on that frame thing, or if you would like to see the Revolution Max in any other bikes. I personally wish they would make a version of every Harley with that motor. But again, I'm in a unique situation where I get to ride them without buying them. So that's just for my own personal enjoyment. I would like to play around with them. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.